Hello everyone and welcome to my clay Jurassic World, I say. And what I'll be doing in this video today is finishing off the Jurassic World Dominion Giganotosaurus today, I do say. Now, as I put the finishing touches on the Giga today, such as a lot of striping, I say, plus a lot of spiky osteoderms today, I'll be going over the possibilities, you might say, on there being 2 Giganotosauruses, I say, in the Jurassic World movie franchise today, I do say. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, how could there possibly be a second Giganotosaurus? Because, well, slight spoiler alert, we've all seen the first one die. But I plan on explaining this theory today in this video, you might say. So I'm sure you're all well acquainted with the fearsome Giganotosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. And if there's a possibility you haven't seen this movie yet, well, I suggest you go check it out. And as I've previously already mentioned, and I'm sure you're all well aware of, that the Giganotosaurus does die at the end of this film. So how could there possibly be a second Giganotosaurus, you might be asking? How is this even possible, Mr. Moose Motion Animation? Well, let me explain and go into detail as I finish the details on this dinosaur today. Now, it is true that we only know of the one true clone Giganotosaurus at the moment, which happens to be from Biosyn Valley. And after its death in this movie, it is possible that it fell back into extinction. However, it is possible that an unknown specimen and or possibly leftover genetic material is still available somewhere else in the world. And again, you're probably asking, how is this even possible, Mr. Moose? We have no real evidence of this being, well, true. But you see, here's the thing. We do know back in 2013, they did have Giganotosaurus DNA. So yes, that's correct. InGen back in 2014 did have access to Giganotosaurus DNA. And what's my proof of them having this DNA, you might be asking? Well, they made the Indominus Rex with it. So basically, what you're trying to tell me is they had access to this genome, or this DNA, and they didn't create their own Giganotosaurus? Seems kind of unlikely to me, at least personally. We even know that the Giganotosaurus was supposed to be in Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, but was then later cut, so they obviously had plans for this Cretaceous creature to have been created back in Jurassic World. So that means this predates Biosyn. Now, it should be noted that the original Giganotosaurus had been in Biosyn Valley for a number of years, at least by the looks of things, due to the fact that it's very beat up and scarred looking. It has clearly been in a lot of combat. Now, a good question to ask here, has most of that combat been in the Biosyn Valley? Because that was supposed to be a sanctuary, believe it or not. So what I believe this movie is trying to tell me here is that this Giganotosaurus received all them scars in the Biosyn Sanctuary. Well, perhaps maybe not. Maybe it was caught outside of the Biosyn Sanctuary. Perhaps maybe it was on the prevalent dinosaur black market that was shown in this movie. So perhaps someone else is out there cloning dinosaurs from InGen DNA, which in all honesty isn't that unlikely. Especially with all these other dinosaurs on the black market at this time, which includes all these other species that weren't exactly known from Jurassic World. And to be honest, it seems very unlikely that there's only 2 main players in this, that being Biosyn and InGen. And obviously Manticorp is in the mix because they cloned and made their own dinosaurs as well, and were shut down sometime in 2016. So essentially, someone out there still does have that Giganotosaurus DNA, because it was available and used in Jurassic World on the Indominus Rex. So there's more than likely a possibility that they cloned their own Giganotosaurus. Now, in regards to new movies, new franchises, and new series, we have been left with, well, a open world of possibilities with the end of Jurassic World Rebirth in particular. But one thing is definitely guaranteed. We are definitely going to see a lot more dinosaurs, maybe even a second Giganotosaurus. Because unfortunately, at this time frame, it does seem to be a rather one and done for this dinosaur in Jurassic World Dominion. But that obviously isn't the end, because I still have more to talk about. Now obviously we know that InGen did have that DNA in 2014 for the Indominus Rex. So that begs the question, what exactly did they do with it? Did they just use it to create the Indominus Rex and then not create a clone of this dinosaur themselves? That seems rather unlikely, especially with their plans for it to be in Fallen Kingdom. And then all of a sudden in comes Biosyn, and you're trying to tell me that they're the only ones that have cloned it? Seems unlikely. Now, obviously, in the current canon, there is only one Giganotosaurus species to be known, but that doesn't mean that there are other species out there that we're still unaware of. I mean, realistically, just look at the Jurassic World franchise as a whole. Jurassic World had the hybrid storyline with the Indominus Rex, and then created the Endoraptor shortly after. And before that, they were talking about how they were never going to make another hybrid. But to be honest, the great thing about the Jurassic World franchise, it can make just about anything it wants canon by creating new storylines in the future, which I believe we've basically first witnessed with Jurassic World Rebirth. But right now, obviously, canonically speaking, we only do have the one Giganotosaurus. But that's not to say that won't be changed in the near future. For example, the same thing happened to the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3, because everyone thought canonically it's dead, and that it died on Sorna. But yet we see it come back in Camp Cretaceous Season 4. However, there is a lot of people saying that this is technically a different Spinosaurus. But this information was actually confirmed by the director that this is the same Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3. But they have the ability to retcon it later, because they then go and say, well, maybe it's a different Spinosaurus because it has a slightly different roar. So basically, there's a bit of a contradiction here, because at the same time, they're saying yes it is, but also saying it's not. So essentially, they have the ability to change that in the future if they want to. So essentially, it would be quite easy to do the same thing with the Giganotosaurus, especially with the DNA being in the Indominus Rex. Now, let's focus a bit on its lifespan in the Biosyn Sanctuary, because we know in 2022, it is the apex predator of the Biosyn Valley or the Sanctuary. But a good question to ask is, how long has it been in there? And why wouldn't they make a second Giganotosaurus to see how they act in pairs? Because after all, they did do this with the Indominus Rex as well, but that didn't turn out so well. Perhaps they could have been experimenting with a breeding pair. And potentially they did, and perhaps that's where it got its scars from, because it was actually fighting a second Giganotosaurus. Now obviously that hasn't been mentioned in the canon just as of yet, and it most certainly was never mentioned in the Dominion movie, but it is quite evident that they did have plans to use this in Fallen Kingdom, because we do have concept art for this scene, but unfortunately it was cut from the movie. So basically Giganotosaurus was being prepped to be used in Fallen Kingdom, so obviously they must have had a storyline for it to be manufactured or cloned way before the events of 2018. So they had that storyline ready, but then later cut it. But there's no reason that they couldn't use that same storyline in future Jurassic World movies, or perhaps even Jurassic World spin-off series. There's definitely a lot more to explore in this Jurassic World lore, especially when it comes to all these unanswered questions from Dominion, not to mention the latest movie Jurassic World Rebirth, which leaves an open door opportunity for them to answer these questions in the future, such as what happened to the DNA from Jurassic World, which was used to clone their dinosaurs. Did Henry Wu take every single drop, or did some of it get leaked onto the black market? Now, it's more than likely that some of this DNA did end up on the black market. Then obviously Henry Wu has some as well. And then some of it was also taken by mercenaries, which was unfortunately taken by force and used for nefarious purposes. So I believe even though at the ending of Jurassic World Rebirth they stated that the dinosaurs were basically going extinct due to the fact that they could only survive close to the equator, there is more than likely more dinosaur species that are unheard of. So yes, perhaps there is even more dinosaurs out there that we haven't even heard of, and possibly a second Giganotosaurus. Who knows, it could even be 3, which would be very deadly and very scientifically accurate, because a lot of paleontologists have an estimation that a lot of these dinosaurs from South America, particularly the large Giganotosauridae carnivores, usually hunted in small packs. After all, they were taking down sauropods, which is no easy task. But here's another good reason as to why there might be more dinosaurs that are unheard of. And this was due to the fact in Dominion they stated that they weren't altering their DNA. So it would be easy enough to extract that DNA themselves and create their own clones from there. But if they do manufacture the InGen DNA, maybe perhaps that was slightly altered or changed. So you might see a totally different type of Giganotosaurus, because we do know that InGen did fill in the blanks.
Mr. Puppy. Oh, yo, it's a dog wild boogie.
Which did change the DNA of these dinosaurs, which did make them look a little bit different. Because if I'm to be honest, the Giga from Jurassic World does kind of look like a Giganotosaurus. Now, I do understand that these dinosaurs are allegedly cloned and not exactly supposed to look like their counterparts. However, we did see a skit of this dinosaur from its prior past, so we do know that this thing has supposedly looked like this the entire time. But ill regards of that minor indiscrepancy, Biosyn did mention they were trying to make their dinosaurs look as historically accurate as possible, without making any unnecessary changes in the DNA. So there's a good chance that if InGen does have a Giganotosaurus, it would probably look very different in comparison to the Giganotosaurus we see in the Biosyn Valley. And that is also a very big possibility, I believe. Because let's be honest, how cool would that be to see in the future? Be it a movie or perhaps animated show. Whatever it might be, have someone recognize the fact that that does look like a Giganotosaurus, but at the same time, no ordinary Giganotosaurus. Essentially almost looking like a different species compared to the one in the Biosyn Valley perhaps. And then boom, before you know it, that's another storyline to go off of right there. Now obviously this is just kind of a wishful theory of mine, however, it does have some substance behind it, especially when it comes to that DNA. And the fact that we knew it was meant to be in Fallen Kingdom, so at some point they definitely did have a storyline ready to showcase that Giganotosaurus, which was made or cloned before the events of 2018. Now obviously they could repurpose this and put it into a story in the future, and it would easily explain how we could possibly see a second Giganotosaurus out there in the world, just in the wild, especially with how things are going after Jurassic World Rebirth. Especially with all this DNA regularly available on the black market, there could be an abundance of species yet to be discovered. Now obviously I do want to briefly mention that none of this is canon, so I don't exactly want anyone going off in the comments going, well, this isn't canon so none of this could happen. Yes, I know that. This is basically just a fun fan theory. And this is just a theory on how there could possibly be a second Giganotosaurus and or possibly more. Especially given the fact with the way Jurassic World Rebirth ended, we have an entire new facility that is basically unheard of and relatively unknown, which leaves us with almost endless possibilities within reason of the climate, obviously with the current storyline that we have, so hopefully there's more to come. But that concludes how there could possibly be two Giganotosauruses in the Jurassic World franchise. So I hope you enjoyed this video today, I do say, and if you did, be sure to smash that like button as hard as a Giganotosaurus today. And be sure to subscribe if you're new, because there's plenty of more dinosaur content coming for you. So one might say it's a good day to have your post notifications turned on today, because now that the Giganotosaurus is done, a new project will soon be underway. But be sure to comment below what you think of this Giga, I say. And be sure to share with your dinosaur-loving friends today, or you might get eaten by a Giga, I say. Thanks for sticking around to the very end of the video. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if anything. Anyway, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy.